live across the America, across the universe, all over the place, just making sure that you're getting all the baseball history that you can absorb. Let me get a few more things here when I get straight here. Maybe I don't want to get it straight here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I want to raise my microphone up just a little bit here. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So anyway, guys, hey, coming to you with a little baseball history today, and so we don't want to waste a lot of time. Just want to get it right into it and talk a little bit here and go from there. So I'm trying to think where I want to start here tonight. So we'll wait just about a minute here. Once again, my name is Phil Dixon. As always, I'm always saying if you like what I'm doing here, go ahead and subscribe. All right, and we try to keep it interesting and try to always make sure that we're giving new information that you typically won't get anywhere else. And if you'd like to read about the Negro Baseball Leagues, guys, that's great. I've got books you can subscribe to. So I was thought maybe I had one right here, but I don't have one in front of me. That's amazing. I need to also be pumping up my books. Actually, I do have one of them here, right here. This is Andrew Root Foster, A Harvest on Freedom's Field, and that's a pretty good one because what it does is it's kind of tricky. People think if they pick that up, they're going to learn just about Andrew Root Foster. But the interesting thing is that one man is not an island. And so it takes a lot of people, and it took many people to make Root Foster who he was. So that is the reason why that book is interesting because it has the histories, actually has the best ever history of Frank Leland that you ever want to read about anywhere. So anyway, let me get busy on this broadcast and let you know what we're going to do. So we're going to go and give you historic facts that happened through the ages on this date, February the 25th. And of course, this is the February 25th, 2026 edition. So we're going to go back through the ages and give you some information. So we're going to start with something that goes back to 1912. The Sioux City Journal, that's a newspaper up in Iowa, in a report on the Cuban Baseball League, reported that 6 men in the league were batting over 400. Can you imagine that, man? Boy, some good ball players. 6 persons batting over 400. Just imagine that. And the leading hitter is a guy by the name of Bill Pettis. Bill Pettis, I've talked about him a number of times because he was also a professional boxer. The first time I heard about Bill Pettis was from a guy by the name of Fred Langford. Fred Langford was about 94 when I was about 23, 24. And I would go by his house and talk to him about baseball. And Fred would just give me all of this information. And of course, we didn't have any newspapers online or anything like that. So I had to go to the library and check it out. And some of the information he gave me, it took me years to find it. But turns out everything he said was true. He was the first one to tell me about the 54-game winning streak of the Kansas City, Kansas Giants in 1909. He also was the one who told me about Bill Pettis fighting Jim Flynn out in Colorado. And so I was able to get that information from someone who was around during that time. And Fred, he was a baseball player who started out with Billy Rogan and Dick Whitworth of the American Giants. And so he was just a wealth of information. And for a young guy like myself to sit around and speak to an elder like that and just learn baseball, it was just amazing. Of course, that's why I'm here now. Fred has gone on to glory. He's buried in the same cemetery there with my grandparents. But Fred was the one who helped me to become who I am. So let's see, do you know something brothers who lost his eye? Not sure about that. I'm not sure exactly the question you're asking. See if you can spell that out just a little bit more. Maybe I can see if I can answer it. Okay, so anyway, you got all these guys batting over 400. All right, 6 men. And of course, Havana is tearing up the league. Oh, my throat is scratchy tonight. But Havana is tearing up the league. And you know the reason why? It's because they have all of these outstanding American players that are playing in the, quote, Negro leagues or colored leagues. And they have common names. But In baseball, when you talk about the Negro Leagues, if I give you the last name, you're going to know who these people are through this period. So, like one guy was named Hill, that's a real common name, Pete Hill. Another guy named Johnson, Grand Home Run Johnson, real common. Lloyd, John Henry Lloyd. Petway, not so common on Petway, but that was Bruce Petway, the catcher. And then they had one of the Taylors on the team. I'm not sure which one it was, but I'm thinking that it might be Jim Taylor. No, sorry, no, Ben Taylor. Ben Taylor, probably down in Cuba. Of course, they had a Williams on the team, and of course, we know that's Joe Williams. And finally, Bill Pettis, who was tearing the league to pieces. John Henry Lloyd, he wasn't doing too bad either. He was batting like 350 or something. But man, when you got a guy batting 454, that makes you know, hey, I don't know if you could even in a running for the title. But these guys, man, they were remarkable players, batting 400, and we don't even know who they are. And then we're happy that we can find someone in the American National League that batted 300 even, and we're excited about him because we never heard about these guys who were doing all this wonderful playing. And so Bill Pettis, that's the name. Bill Pettis was out of New Mexico, if I'm correct. Bill Pettis. Bill Pettis. Yeah, he played for my hometown team, the Kansas Giants, 1909, by the way. And then he went to the Chicago uh, Giants, which was Frank Leland's team. Speaking of this book here again, right? It's in here, right in here, right? So anyway, okay. So we have quite a few people joining in. Guys, if you like what I'm doing, be sure and subscribe. Okay, let's keep it going. We want to make sure we don't hold you up. So February 25th, 1928, Rap Dixon went 4 for 4, picked up 4 hits and scored four runs, one of those hits being a homer in a 12-8 victory over Jack Roach's San Diego team at Navy Field in San Diego, California. And of course, Horace Walker chipped in with 3 hits, and George Carr, talked about him a lot, especially during the Winter League games. He was from Los Angeles. He picked up a pair of doubles. So Herbert Rap Dixon out of Stilton, Pennsylvania. Haven't talked a lot about Dixon, but he was a great player. And of course, I love that name, Dixon. Right? Dixon, that's a great name right there. And he was just a great player. This guy had a rifle arm. And I remember reading an article, Dizzy Dismuke, saying that he picked his 10 greatest outfielders of all time. And Herbert Rap Dixon was one of those guys. And then he went to Japan, 1927, and he hit a home run out of a stadium in Japan. That was the first home run ever hit out of that professional stadium over there. So that was a monumental feat. He achieved that in 1927. Also, if I'm correct, he hit the first home run out of Yankee Stadium by an African-American player. That was in 1930 when they were playing a game there for the Brotherhood of Sleeping Porters, train porters, right? So anyway, that was Rap Dixon, Herbert Rap Dixon. There's a guy over in Harrisburg. He's really pushing for Rap Dixon to get in the Hall of Fame. There's some guys ahead of him, but Dixon was a great player. Short career, but a great player. All right, let's keep it going here. February 25th, 1951, the legendary pitcher Joseph Smokey Joe Williams died in New York City. This guy broke into professional baseball with the San Antonio Black Buffaloes way back in 1904, 1905. And he was at that time tagged as Cyclone Joe Williams. So, man, they said Cyclone Joe Williams. You can imagine that. And then later on, this guy was throwing the ball so hard and pitching so often, they called him the Human Gatling Gun. And that was Smokey Joe Williams, Cyclone Joe, the Human Gatling Gun. Yeah, he was out of Sanguine, Texas, if I'm correct on that. And I think I've mentioned it before. That's the same hometown as Freddie Patek, who I used to follow, and who, when he played with the Kansas City Royals. Actually, I know Freddie. Anyway, I just want to let you know that Williams passed away. And also I was going through some stuff. You know, of course, Williams is in the Hall of Fame. I was looking at another Hall of Famer, and this was also in 1951. And this is something I read about in, I'm trying to think what newspaper it was, Philadelphia Tribune. No, it was another newspaper. But anyway, Mel Ott. I don't know if you heard of Mel Ott. Mel played for the New York Giants, is in the Hall of Fame. And he was in an article talking about how good of friends he was with this guy named Leslie Burroughs. But Leslie Burroughs is really Wesley Burroughs. And they both grew up around, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Grentna, Louisiana. And they played ball against each other. So I guess there was some intermixing there between races, and especially on the baseball field. So they knew each other. And and then Burroughs eventually came into the Negro League. And of course, my aunt it ended up in the National League. And Mel said that during the war, that Burroughs' team, and he was connected to the Baltimore team, they had problems getting bats. And so he would actually reach out to Mel Ott, and Mel Ott would give him bats that belonged to the New York Giants. And they would give them to Burroughs for free. And Burroughs came up, actually tried to pick up a larger supply of bats. So evidently bats were hard to get during the World War. And so anyway, they were good friends. And so sometimes we don't know about the friendship of some of these ball players. Some of them talked about it, many did not. But this Mel Ott did have a chance to talk about it. Interesting thing about Mel Ott, and I did mention this, Mel Ott died in a let me say, a head-on crash with a car that another black man was driving down not too far from Gulfport, Mississippi, down in that area. And so he had a head-on collision and passed away within probably a day or so, and that was the end. And so that it was a lot of controversy to that, because the black man's wife tried to sue Mel Ott, his state, saying that Mel was drunk when he left the restaurant. And guess what, guys? You can search all over and you won't find much about that story. That's one that you can almost get exclusive from right here from Phil Dixon. And so that's a story that I've talked about many times. So yeah, and then let me give you another one from 1951. This is this is 1927. We're going to jump back a little bit. The Philadelphia Tribune reported that Ed Bowden had signed shortstop Bill Yancey, and he had signed him from Dan McClellan's Philadelphia Giants, where he had played Dan McClellan's team in 1926. And of course, Dan McClellan is somebody, when I think of the left-handed pitcher, man, that should be getting more conversation and should have more talk about Dan McClellan. He was simply an outstanding pitcher, a lefty, during the period probably about 1900 to about 1910. He was lights out. But once again, these people are being snubbed by everybody, because there's only a few people that people continuously talk about, and Dan McClellan is not one of them. Herbert Rack Dixon is really not one of them. John Donaldson isn't one of them. But they were certainly outstanding players. And then that same newspaper mentioned that they had signed another guy by the name of Soldier Bill Hillary, out of Fort Humphrey. And I don't know if that's New Jersey, Fort Humphreys. Anyway, they had signed him, and go look him up, guys. I bet you won't find hardly anything on a guy by the name of Soldier Bill Hillary. Yeah, and then if you find something, go ahead and come back to the broadcast and send me a note. I'm always interested in what you find, right? Okay, and then that same newspaper, the Philadelphia Tribune of 1927, the Cleveland Club in the Negro National League, they wanted, they had a conversation because they wanted to get Oscar Charleston. Now, keep in mind, man, you know what free agency looks like today. Man, if anything, would you believe free agency found its home in the Negro Leagues? If there was anybody was practicing free agency, it was the Negro National League and the Eastern Color League and black baseball players. They would move around, and these contracts that they had, guys, they play for you. But believe me, you never owned them. And so if they needed to go, they were on their way. So anyway, this team from Cleveland said to the Negro National League, if you'll let us get Oscar Charleston, we'll pay him the highest salary ever paid to an African-American baseball player. And They said that they will put the money in a prominent bank as a guarantee if Charleston would be made available for them to purchase for the Cleveland team. That was 1927, and they went on record, man. They were serious. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end with this one tonight. This is February 25th, 1919. Hall of Fame outfielder Monty Merrill Irvin is born in Hillsburg, Alabama, a former infielder for the Newark Eagles. Of course, he joined the New York Giants in 1949. Guys, you got to think about this. How many of these ball players, and we can go back to Jackie Robinson, and you can go to Monty Irvin. Yeah, man, you can just keep naming names who were actually born in the South, but moved to the North, and that's where they learned their baseball. And that's a story that's repeated over and over and over again, because the South was just one of the dirtiest places that you could live as far as getting an opportunity for any type of upward mobility. And so they had to go to places where they could get that, where they could get, their parents could get decent jobs, where you could live a decent life. And because of that, guys, the whole game and this whole history of America has been changed. And the South gave up their best. And if you ever lived in a town that was maybe a small town close to a large town, and people just couldn't stay in that small town, they had to go to the larger town, and that's where they made their name, that's where they made their fortunes. And so it was no different for Black people. And the reason I'm broadcasting right now from Kansas City is because of the Great Migration. And once again, you're looking at Monty Irvin here, who was born in 1919. And so, guys, that's right around the Great Migration. And just think about how many people have left those areas and ended up in major cities and changed not only baseball history, basketball history, football history. It goes on and on and on, but they were not born in those places. So anyway, guys, that kind of does it for me tonight. And man, we're having a conversation here that never stops, guys. If you like what I'm doing, go ahead and subscribe. If you think that you have friends that are interested in this kind of conversation, go ahead and share this broadcast. And I guarantee you, you're going to hear something here that you don't hear anywhere else. I can guarantee you that. And I guarantee you that tonight, what I told you about Mel Ott, you've probably never seen that before. And about the car accident, or the fact that he was good friends with Wesley Burroughs. And Wesley Burroughs, if you ever get down to New Orleans, Wesley Burroughs, the Urban Baseball League Academy is named after Wesley Burroughs. Yeah, so yeah, small world, lots of information and lots of history. So if anybody had any questions here, I will answer at least one question, and then I'm out of here. If anybody has a question, I'll be happy to do that. And because I'm going to cut it off here about 20 minutes. And thank you for joining. And I will look forward to coming back. But guys, this has been my honor to come and talk to you about baseball history in ways that maybe typically you don't hear baseball history. So once again, my name is Phil Dixon. I'm a baseball historian. And let's see, somebody says hello. And where are you joining me from? I'm kind of curious. Nobody mentions where they are joining from, and I'm always curious about that. And somebody was talking about somebody who had lost an eye. Not sure who that would be. You know, there was a great TV show way back called Ben Casey. And if you ever go on Ben Casey, and you go look this up, there was an episode, Texas, all right. Texas is a good place. You know, I have not presented in Texas much, but I sure look forward to coming down there. You come to Texas, guys, you got to be willing to stay for a while because it's a big place. But anyway, going back to that broadcast, somebody asked me do I know about somebody who lost an eye? There's an episode of Ben Casey. Now, if you go to YouTube and put in Ben Casey and then put in Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. plays a baseball player, and he gets hit in the eye with a bat because he's trying to steal home or something like that, and the guy hit him. And it's a great interesting story, and it came on Ben Casey, maybe about 1966 or somewhere in there. So, guys, go ahead and check that out. Hey, I always like to give information, and if you're like me, you're always looking for something interesting to listen to on YouTube, and sometimes if you listen to a lot of YouTube, you find yourself listening to the same things and you can't find anything interesting. I listen to a lot of old time radio shows on YouTube because I don't care for the commercials. So a lot of times I'll put my cell phone on and put it on YouTube, and I want to go to something that has no commercials. And of course, a lot of the old time radio shows have no commercials, or they have a commercial that's inside the show that is really interesting because it goes back in the day. Maybe somebody's trying to sell you some cigarettes or something like that. So anyway, it's always interesting to hear what they're trying to sell. But anyway, guys, that does it for me. I'm at my 20 minutes, and I usually know that people's attention spans don't last that long. So I'm not trying to put your attention span to a test. So feel free to join me again. Hey, and get a chance, go check out that episode of Ben Casey with Sammy Davis Jr. as the baseball player who loses an eye. All right. Thank you, guys. And I'll be happy to drop more information the next time we come together. Have a nice evening. This is Phil Dixon, and today is February the 25th, 2026. And this has been today's edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. Bye.